Hey, welcome to Navigating Betrayal webinar podcast and YouTube channel. I'm your host, KayLee Dunn, betrayal navigation coach, betrayal trauma therapist, and admin to this free Facebook group, Humans Navigating Betrayal. Today, I'd like to reintroduce you to Kendra Last. She is an admin here in this Humans Navigating Betrayal Facebook group, close friend of mine, colleague, and I want to introduce you to her if she's new to you. So, Kendra is a certified life coach, retreat leader who helps betrayed women and couples heal and reconnect after betrayal. For the past 10 years, she's worked with betrayed women who are trying to rebuild trust and confidence after deep heartbreak. Through that experience and her own personal story, Kendra developed how to help both partners find hope when the relationship feels almost too broken to repair. Kendra is also, as I mentioned, an admin for this group, Humans Navigating Betrayal. And stick around with us live if you're here. We'll have a Q&A at the end. So, Kendra, when I first asked you what you'd like to talk about today, you said helping couples heal. So just to start, tell us a little bit about why this has become a passion for you, and then we'll get into the details.
Yes. So in listening to all of my clients, one of their number one things is that they could not find the help either for their partner or for them as a couple. And that they had tried lots of things and they were just really, really frustrated. And I had heard this hundreds of times. And so I was like, okay, there has to be something else for them as a couple that's available that's not currently there, because what's currently there, what they're finding isn't working. And so I have just listened to a lot of stories of what didn't work, look back on my own experience of what didn't work, and just have a new approach that is working.
That's amazing. I agree with you. I think that for the general population, for most people that are experiencing betrayal, and we'll get into this more, but what people are often given as advice, go to basic couples therapy. It doesn't work. It absolutely doesn't work. So tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing that's unique, and how is it different from other things that you've seen?
Sure. So other things that I've seen, I'll start there, is like traditional couples therapy. And what my clients complain about is that it's two people sitting on a couch with one person on the other side. And the relationship is the client. And the therapist is helping the relationship to continue. It's not addressing the individual needs of each of those people. And so it just gets really frustrating. Often it turns into like scheduled fight hour of the couple sitting on the couch and trying to repair the relationship, but they aren't repaired themselves yet. And so
Hmm.
it's like out of order. It's just not a very effective. And I remember from when I tried couples therapy, like it felt like they were siding with my ex. And it often feels that way in couples therapy. And so I wanted to, one, take care of that feeling. I never wanted anybody to feel that feeling. And I wanted to fix the issue of two people sitting on a couch and just fighting and not feeling safe enough to be able to be vulnerable and like really get to the root of the problem.
I love that. Something I've been thinking a lot about, writing a lot about back here quietly on my end and researching is how often these general couples therapies make an assumption about symmetry, that both partners are the same. They both have the same skill sets, they both have the same emotional intelligence, they both have the same neurotype, they both have a lot of the things that are the same. And historically, when we researched couples in the marriage research, back in like 60s, 70s, 80s, there was a lot of similarities between individuals, executive functioning, those sorts of things. But often when you get into these type of relationships where there's emotional abuse going on, where there's a betrayal going on, we actually find that there's not that type of symmetry, and they have what I call an asymmetrical relationship. And sometimes it's also hierarchical, where one person is trying to dominate the other person, but sometimes it's not. And those are the types of couples who want to stay together when they're like, my partner's not trying to dominate me, they're not trying to hurt me, but they are. And often it's because of these asymmetries. So I like what you're saying, because when you're addressing both individuals as a part of the way that you do your work, that allows you to see these differences that each person is bringing rather than targeting, let's keep the relationship together. And something that we probably should have started with is a little bit of a caveat that I know a lot of, and I'll just ask you to give it, but like
Mhm.
a lot of people coming to this or seeing even the title, Rebuilding Love, that can be really triggering. What would you say to someone who's like, oh, I don't want to rebuild love? Or are you kidding me? This is so dangerous. What are you talking about? What would you say to them?
Totally. And I don't work with all couples. I will work with couples who both present as wanting to do the work, and I will not coach them if the betraying behavior is still happening. So if they need to help to still quit the porn, if they need help to cut off the affair partner, any of that needs to happen separately outside of any relationship work. Once that has happened, if I have two people who both are willing to do work, both, understand that this is like a process of accountability and taking care of themselves, then I'm willing to work with the couple. Otherwise, I gladly work with people individually. So if you are a betrayed partner and you're like, that seems scary or like dangerous or whatever, it's like, great, get the help for yourself. Like that's what I've been doing for years and years and years is helping the individual betrayed partner. And sometimes it helps your relationship. Sometimes you recognize that your relationship isn't the right one, but you create the safety for yourself. Do not enter a therapy or coaching setting where you don't feel safe. Like that is the number one like red flag that would say, nope, this is not what we're gonna do together.
Absolutely. And so often betrayed partners, there is that feeling of like, I don't feel safe in this relationship. So I'm going to go to therapy with my partner to a couples therapist, and they're going to help create safety for me in my relationship. And that's understandable that you'd want that. However, for most marital therapy theories, not all, but for many, if the therapist takes on a couple, then that, like you said, that relationship becomes the client. And so the therapist kind of has to take this neutral stance unless they're seeing active and it's very obvious active abuse, and where oftentimes the emotional abuse of betrayal can feel like an undercurrent that you sense, but it's hard to prove or it's hard to explain, or maybe you don't even know how to explain like the mental load that's being consumed or the labor that's being consumed or the type of domination that's happening. And so often, hopefully this is becoming more and more clear to betrayed partners and people who are experiencing emotional abuse that, that general couples therapy is not safe if you know, like, I'm not safe, I'm actively being abused, but that instead going to get help for yourself is really your top priority. And then the next feedback we get is like, but I'm not doing anything wrong. Like, I didn't cause this. I was just living my life. I'm not mentally ill. And therapy can have a stigmatization, or coaching even can have this feeling of like, but I didn't do anything wrong. So you telling me to go get help tells me like you're blaming me for what the betrayal or for the abuse. And but what we want to clarify right at the beginning is, one, doing work with your partner if they're unsafe, whether that's physically, sexually, emotionally, mentally, betrayally, any of those things, you don't want to go to that couples therapy.
Right.
And when you do seek help for yourself, it's because you deserve it and you need it. And you get that support and that support system that can help get you resources, that can help get you to safety and can help you make the decisions that can help you get safe, as opposed to trying to drag your partner in who's already not safe. And that what Kendra said, I just want to highlight again, which is that your safety is number one. Now, if you're in a relationship where it's not hierarchical, I mean, I'm sure there's some general systemic hierarchies that exist, but if in your coupleship you say, you know what, he's not trying or she's not trying to control me or manipulate me or dominate me or maintain power over me, but it's just painful. It's non-hierarchical, but it is asymmetrical. Like they're constantly just like a bull in a china shop messing with the relationship, or they're doing all these things that are harmful and they claim it's not their intent. And in my gut, I can tell it's not their intent, but the impact is harmful. Those are the cases where maybe you'd see somebody like Kendra, right? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And it's interesting because I like one of the most recent couples that I started working with, they came in saying he's not doing his betrayal behavior anymore. It was like excessive porn. And like he's not been doing that for a year and a half. And yet we still can't figure out how to like really repair the relationship. And so the work that I've been doing with them has been really helpful because they are both safe, right? And they know, like cognitively, they know that they're safe. Emotionally and physically, and their nervous system doesn't feel safe. And so we're doing
Mhm.
that work of really healing yourself and having safety come from within you first. That sounds probably kind of weird, but but that's the work that we do individually with this person and this person separately.
Mhm.
And it's just really, really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And for you, I mean, you've kind of highlighted this a little bit, but I wonder if you want to extrapolate on it. Why do you think that traditional couples therapy sometimes stalls out with betrayed couples? I mean, we've talked about the safety component, but in
Mhm.
addition to that.
Yeah. Um, Again, it goes back to like the who is the client.
Mm.
And if the couple, so like I like to imagine like the couple is the client or two individuals are the client. And when the couple is the client, it's really hard to get individual needs met, individual goals met and things like that. So for instance, if one partner is wanting the other to like hold space for them and be able to listen and talk and, hold space, but this partner is lacking some other basic things for them that they need to do, they're like, I can't hold space for her. And so then it becomes like a fight in therapy of, I want him to hold space. We talked last week about holding space. Why aren't you holding space? Instead, it's like, oh, like this person, their confidence is so low that they don't even have time with friends, that they don't do any of these things. And like, okay, let's build that confidence first. And when you feel really confident in yourself, then you have a little bit more energy to hold the space for the partner. And so it's really uncovering what do they each individually need. It's not saying this person never needs to hold space for them, but it's
Hmm.
helping them see they're just not capable yet. Like they need
Mm.
to build some other things first, and there's
Hmm.
nothing wrong with that. It just is. And so helping them see where this client's maybe ahead of this one and this client's maybe ahead of this one, and helping them really like also gain the patience to wait for the other person to catch up in those things, and to see that, okay, well, if they don't hold space for me for say 2 months, it's not because they don't care, it's because they're working on some other basic skills for themselves, so that when they know those things, they have the capacity to hold the space.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's interesting as a couples therapist, I've worked with couples for years and years and years. I really like what you're saying here because I mean, this isn't new in the therapy world, but often what therapists will need to do, depending on what clinic you're working at or whatever, is have two separate therapists to then do that individual work. And then sometimes
Mhm.
they'll work together. But then there's always this discussion in the betrayal world, like, well, then you don't have one person who can see the big picture, and sometimes the therapists are battling it out with each other, and there's a lot of that kind of messiness. So I can see a couple of things that's really brilliant with the system in coaching. So to use a coaching lens, one is that when it comes to coaching, we're going to really the foundational skills and education. So it's very, I don't want to say rudimentary as in like that's a bad thing, but it really goes to that foundation when it comes to coaching on what are the skills, what are the thoughts, what are the emotions on this very kind of, it feels simple, but it's not
Yeah.
simple level. And sometimes therapists can go a little bit more, depending on the therapist, but some can be a little bit more into the guts of the traumas or the disabilities or the mental illnesses, which are there, right? But potentially for this couple, but we can miss some of those just basic relationship skills and abilities and character. And so those pieces you can do individually rather than trying to do it at the same time or with two separate therapists. So I can see how, as a coach, you have the ability to stay in a coaching lane,
Mhm.
but really work with two individuals within a system on these particular skills. And then you can kind of see and express to them maybe what's happening within the system so that they have the ability, like you said, to build some patience or or regulation skills, or kind of really present and focus level abilities and skills that's going to move them forward. So I really like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the way that I work with them is I meet with each client once a week, and then once a month we all meet together, the three of us, and it's not a coaching session per se, but it's a guided conversation so that this person could say, "Hey, I'm really working on my confidence, and these things have really helped me, and I want to hold space for you. I know that that's on the goal list." And I see all these things on the goal list, and it is totally there. I'm just not to the goal list yet, but this is what I'm working on. And this person could say, "Okay, thank you for explaining that. I can be a little bit more patient because this relationship is important enough to me that it's kind of like, I ask the question a lot, like, if you knew for sure that in 8 months they would be to a place where they could hold space, where they could like, and eight is just a number.
Random number.
It could be
Yeah.
any number, right? If we knew for sure that we were going to get to a place where your partner has all of those skills and can hold the space, and that your relationship like comes back to where you both want it to be, his goals are met, her goals are met, would you be patient through that time? And the answer is always yes. That's why they've
Still
come to me,
together.
is
Yeah.
they're still together, they want it to work. We just don't know the exact number of months. And so I always tell them it's our first best guess, right? Our first best guess is that you guys are both going to be feeling a lot better in 6 months, let's say. And so helping them be patient along the way and point out even the little things that they're working on. Let's say it takes 4 weeks to build confidence in one of the partners. And confidence is an issue that comes up with both the betrayer and the betrayed partner. But like just the patience and ability to then talk about some of those like micro skills, even that they're learning, and learning to handle the discomfort while they listen to their partner. So instead of somebody just saying, "You need to listen more," it's like, "Oh, what's happening for me when I'm listening that makes me turn off my brain?" And we need to get rid of that and learn a new skill. And so that's really like how I really help the couple still come together, but doing their individual work.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I do have a question for you. I've
Mhm.
heard you say many times that you help couples believe in their relationship again.
Mm.
What does that belief look like in real life? What does that mean? Especially
Yes.
for a betrayed partner who has spent a lot of time believing in their relationship and usually at this point is at their end of their rope.
Yes. Okay. I love this. Also, it's Halloween and I'm dressed up basically as my belief in love, right? Like today is the embodiment of my ability and willingness to believe in it for you. So, when you are emotionally exhausted and just have like almost nothing left to give, but you know that you want the relationship to work, all you have to do is decide that you still have some piece like that's worth working towards. So for instance, I have them write down a list of all of the reasons that they want to save the relationship, and if there's anything on that list, then I'm like, "Okay, amazing, we have something to fight for. We have something." And even though you're seeing one item or 5 items on the list and you want there to be 100, that's okay. I will hold the belief for you that we can add to this list. That in the repair process, that there's going to be so much goodness and like just learning and closeness and compassion for each other that's going to happen, that we're going to make this list a lot longer. And I will believe that for you as if I see all 100 things on the list. And you could borrow that belief from me. I will show up every week with that belief. Not in a way of pushing them to save the relationship, right? Like in coaching, either one of them could decide that the relationship isn't right for them anymore. And that's okay. They can decide that. Typically, when we have these partners come together and the betrayer has already stopped the betraying behaviors and the betrayed person is still around and wants it to work, usually they're going to choose to stay together, right? But even if there's very few things on the list, I will show up every week as if the 100 things are there, and then we can see what's lacking, and I can help them build those skills, or like create those things to finish the list to 100.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that because ultimately you make such a good point. We've done a lot of polls in our Facebook group, and now we have 15,000 members, which is
Mhm.
wild. And in these polls, we often find that a good percentage, I mean, usually at least half, if not more than half of the members in the Facebook group, which isn't a statistically significant pool of humans navigating betrayal, but it's not nothing, shows that a good close to the majority of people after a betrayal want to make it work within at least the first 1 to 3 years. And I know there's been peer-reviewed studies that show things that are fairly similar. So there are many who would say, just leave, just cut your losses and run. But we do know that as helpers, as coaches and therapists, what's ethical is to help people make the decisions that they want to make with the information that they have and provide for them the best information we can. So I like that you say you're not pushing anyone to stay in a relationship. But if this couple comes and say, we want to try to make this work, and this is what we have to work with, these are our resources, we can work with that. I love that. And I love the hope in that. Something I also wanted to share was that in the last probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I've been studying a lot about grit, which is a phenomenon that's been studied quite a bit over the last 10 years, as well as hope and learned optimism. And those have been studied for a lot of years in the social science research. And they all have to do kind of with stick-to-itiveness. So grit is about sticking to things even when they get hard. I also study resilience a lot, which is bouncing back after a hard thing, right? And then I've been studying hope and learned optimism, which is like over the course of time, can we learn to be hopeful and optimistic? And one of my big questions in my research has been, when you're in an emotionally abusive relationship, or even if there's physical or other forms of abuse, and I personally, the research isn't there yet, but I personally consider betrayal a form of abuse. Can hope hurt? Can it get in the way? Can it be a problem? And I think that a lot of people, just by all of the clients I've worked with, all the people in the Facebook group, I read all of your stories. And I think that when we've been burned, a lot of times we get into this burned out place of hope, right? Where we've had hope, we've stuck to it, we've had grit. Often the people still in betraying relationships have a lot of grit and a lot of hope. And they may even have been told by helpers, preachers, parents, family members, friends that they have too much hope and that there's something wrong with them, that maybe they're codependent or that they're broken because of the hope that they have. What's really interesting, we don't have this data from the betrayal research, but we do have it in the domestic violence research that in the short run, this level of hope can cause us to get stuck, where we may double down in a relationship where we're getting hurt. We may kind of grit it out and say, oh, I can do more, I can do more, I can do more. But what's interesting is and I know you do this in your work, which is why I highlight this, when the hope is shifted from the relationship, or the grit is shifted from the relationship for a betrayed partner, and then, or at least I'm extrapolating, for a betrayed partner, and then shifted over to their own healing. And the hope is about their own future, their own healing that might possibly include the betraying partner. They can have all of those beautiful, wonderful, amazing skill sets of grit and resilience and hope and optimism, and pivot to their own future and see the benefits that the general population sees when they have grit and resilience and all of those sorts of things. So it's been really interesting to me, because I know you and I have been doing this work for many, many, many years, many decades, and saying this, but to find the research that points to it, what we've been seeing and why, has been really cool to identify the people that we see who are really flourishing, the relationships that are really flourishing after betrayal. What did the betrayed partner do to gain hope? And very often that hope of the relationship is handed to the betrayer, and we say, do you have hope? Because you're going to have to carry it. And she shifts her hope, or he, whoever the betrayed partner is, shifts their hope over to their own healing and their own growth and their own development. And so often that's where we see this kind of growth that you're talking about, right? And then they're building those, both individually building those skills.
Totally. And I think that something else that happens is that as the betrayer is healing and learning how to stop whatever the betraying activity or behavior is, as they're learning to stop that, then it's almost like expected that they could just go straight into healing the relationship and holding space and being a good listener and being able to listen to their betrayed partner, want to talk about it all the time, want to know about their recovery, want to all these things. Some of those, checking in, some of those behaviors and stuff, great. Like we can use them as they work. But I see a missing step of helping them stop the behavior, them becoming really like solid and strong in themselves as this new person, healing themselves, because there's a reason they started this betraying behavior, and we have to address what's underneath that and then come in to heal the relationship. Whereas like if the betrayed partner has been doing their healing work, they're already in step 2. They didn't have to stop any betraying behavior, so they're already getting to the nitty-gritty of why they feel which way and how to feel better. We have to give the betraying partner that same opportunity so that now we have, more equal partners coming together to heal the relationship.
Right. And the reality is, if there's a compulsive part to the betrayal, it's a complicated experience. And there's quite a bit. And often they'll need coaching, and often they'll need therapy, and often they'll need group and a lot of resources. And for a betrayed partner, this can be excruciatingly painful because so often we're reaching to the betrayer saying like, help me, fix me, which is understandable. That's normal. That's attachment. That's secure attachment to say like, hey,
Totally.
I'll work on me, but also there's a reason I'm in a marriage because I want this, or I'm in a relationship because I want this attunement and this connection. And so it's a very painful experience. I know that there are those that say that we give betraying partners too much leeway or excuses to often be hiding or lying or things like that. Some other types of therapies might say, oh, he's going to take 3 years before he can have empathy with you and things like that. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, one, that I would never put a timeline on anything like that. I mean, we do some of our first best guesses, right? Like, well, I think that we'll be in a place where we could kind of work together in 4 months, 6 months, whatever. Like, because especially at the very beginning, you kind of need a number. You need there to be a number, some carrot dangling out in front of you that will help get you from right here, where you're running out of patience and hope, and get you to that place where at least some work has happened. And so I think that that one, that's really important. Two, that, okay, so as far as giving the betrayer too much leeway and things like that, you could just go in and say, okay, fine, you don't get any leeway, you don't get to do the second step. We're going straight in together. Great, let's see how that works for you. Right? Like we have to be able to go back to, but you want this to actually work. And if you want this to actually work, we do need to, like, I don't like grace or leeway or whatever. It's like we just need to give them an equal chance at life, right? Like we just need to, like, I want to be in a relationship with somebody who has the same skills as me so that we can both be empathetic, so that we can both be, can kind of pick up the slack when the other person is having whatever happening, physical health, mental health, whatever, like life, when life is happening. But if you don't give the betrayer the same opportunity to really figure out why they do what they do and how to not go back to that in the future, like, then I just don't see the success of the relationship happening very often. And sometimes the betrayer is willing to stop the behavior, go cold on porn and never look at it again and whatever, or even like do the work and they don't look at it, but they don't want to do that second step. Then it's like, okay, that's also a really good indicator of how your relationship is going to work long term if they don't have those skills. Yes, they need to stop the behavior, but if they don't do this other work, then the empathy doesn't grow and the understanding and kind of working together, it's still like mismatched.
Yeah.
And so like I don't see it as giving them extra leeway. I see it as just giving them like help that they need, like meeting them where they're at and just helping them.
Yeah. Well, and maybe another way of saying it is actually potentially a form of accountability, right? So like you
Totally.
said, there's the behavioral component, right?
Yeah.
And then you're talking about the social, emotional, and cognitive. This isn't about giving someone more leeway, but it's not excuses. It's just looking at the details and the facts and working through those with that person if they're willing and ready
Totally.
and coming with good faith, right?
Yeah, and I'm really glad you brought that up because I get asked fairly often why I'm only willing to work. Well, let me say the whole thing. Why I'm only willing to work with the betrayer for 3 months at a time. I coach betrayed women usually for 6 to 12 months, but I only would like I sign agreements with the betrayer or the couple together for 3 months. And the reason is I hold them very accountable. And I'm not going to keep coaching somebody and charging them money if they're not willing to show up and do the work. I also want the betrayed partner to be able to say, I do not see any work. I do not want to continue this as a couple. And and that's when I stop seeing the betrayer. I can pass them off to somebody else who's very good and capable and all of that. But like that's the reason that I coach couples in 3 month chunks at a time
Mm-hmm.
because I want that both of them really, but to know like we're doing work. We are moving from point A to point B in this amount of weeks, and if you're just here to check a mark and move on, I did it, I went to coaching this week. That's not what I am here for. There are way too many betrayed women who would need help and enjoy that hour with me, that I'm not going to spend that with anybody, male, female, betrayer, betrayed, who just wants to show up and chat with me for an hour.
Yeah. Well, and I would say that the form of coaching, if done right, like you're describing, the form itself can be more accountability holding because of these time limitations where very frequently couples or individuals go to therapy kind of like for whenever, like we open a contract and usually therapy contracts kind of end if you haven't talked to them for a year, that's when they kind of put you off their list. And
Yeah.
so, what I would recommend to anyone listening, if you're in the position of like, well, I want to see someone live, I don't want to do online with, certainly you could work with Kendra if you'd like, but and we'll give you her information at the end. But if you're like, I do want to go to the therapist or I want to go to someone live or whatever your things are, create that form for yourself as a betrayed partner. If you're like, okay, I really want to go to couples, I think we're ready, or at the very least to have that kind of that like guided conversation. We're maybe not ready for
Yep.
attachment work, but I need
Yep.
those guided conversations, those beginning stage guided conversations. My recommendation is create the form for yourself, and that's a boundary, right? Where you go to the therapist and you say, hey, we'll do X number of months or weeks, and then we're going to reassess. You can ask the therapist to help you stay on top of, okay, after X number of months, we're going to reassess because I'm not going to just pay for him to check boxes, and we need to be having these conversations and whatever, right? Or if it's a coach and they do more week to week coaching rather than package coaching, you can create that form, which again can create more accountability, where you can look back after 2 months and say, has anything changed? And you can name all the things, or you can say, I don't really see any changes. So do we want to continue in this type of a helper or not?
Totally. I'm glad you brought that up too, because as you're building that list for yourself, I would also include that you want the therapist to help guide you in growth and not ask, what would you like to work on today? Like that is so triggering for so many of my clients. I don't ask that, but like they bring that up. They're like, I don't know, if I knew what I needed to work on, maybe I wouldn't be here, but I don't
Right.
know, so how about you tell
Yeah.
me and help me get some growth? Whereas I know exactly where we're starting, point A to point C, and
Yeah.
we may do some things out of order. Like if boundaries are super needed right this second, we'll start with boundaries. Otherwise,
Right.
it's usually like month 3. But it
Mm-hmm.
just but it just depends. Whereas I know that we got things to do, and I don't want to keep clients for years and years and years and years, because like I want to teach them the skills and help them be able to then kind of coach themselves afterwards and fly free. And I can help some of the other women or couples who are waiting,
Yeah,
because it just doesn't serve them to keep them forever. So I have a plan to kind of get you out of here. Um,
exactly.
and so yeah.
Yeah, and I honestly think that often that phrase, like, what do you want to work on today, is an
Mhm.
indicator that you're not working with a specialized helper. And when I say specialized, I don't mean what their website says, because
Mhm.
there's lots of people that'll go on their Psychology Today profile or their coaching website and put specialized in, and they'll list 50 things, or they'll even list one thing. But if they don't really see those different steps of growth, and know kind of what needs to happen within that process, I'm not certain that they actually are specialized. Now, certainly, like you described, good therapists and coaches are going to take a personalized approach with you. And they're going to, if you already know and you're already setting great boundaries, they're not going to spend 3 months hammering you on boundaries.
Totally. Yeah, and I'm not just here to take anybody who walks through my door. Like if they need therapy and they have deep complex traumas and things like that, I will help them find a therapist in their area that can work with them well. If they still need help stopping betraying behaviors, I'm going to help them find a coach that, that's their specialty. And then those coaches like will pass them off to me like, okay, they're kind of done. Here you go. and
Yep.
and so it's like I love staying in my lane and knowing what my skills and what my specialty is and being able to say this is not in my lane. Now, I coach women and men on betrayal and healing relationships and stuff like that. Do they sometimes come to coaching saying, there's this thing happening in my relationship with my sister? And I can totally coach you on that. If there is
Mm-hmm.
some drama happening at work, I can totally coach you on that. But I'm not going to sign a client that just wants to work on furthering their career or something. Just because I could coach you on that, that is not where my deepest and best skills are useful. And so I'm not going to, like, I know where my lane is and I like to stay there.
Well, I love that. And you know that your lane is like specifically on the social, emotional, cognitive skill building we didn't get when we were younger. Nobody taught us in high school, right? And those
Mm-hmm.
are so essential and often missing in this process. So I'm just looking at time. And so I want to make sure that we make a little bit of time for the Q&A. So I just want to say, is there anything else you want to add? And then also tell us a little bit about how people can get in contact with you if they would like to be coached by you.
Yes. So if you're hearing this in podcast form, how to get in touch with me will be in the show notes. And if you're watching this on Facebook, we will put them down below as soon as we get off. One other thing that I just want to explain that I think a lot of people get confused about is what happens on a life coaching and consultation. Like they think, oh, it's just a sales call. I'm just getting on for somebody to sell me something. And that is not what at least my consultations are about. I see it as if like you recognize that yourself or your relationship has a fever and you don't know where this fever is coming from. And you have tried all the things and you have taken Tylenol and you've taken all the things and you've put ice and like you've tried everything you know to think of, but the fever is still there. And so you go to the doctor so the doctor could say, this is what's causing the fever. Coming to a consultation with me, I'm going to listen to what's been happening in your relationship, what you want to have happen in your relationship, and I'm going to help you create like a map of how do you get there, whether it's with me or somebody else. Like it might be with a therapist, it might be with a different kind of coach, it might be, like something else. I'm still going to help you figure out that path. If at the end we feel like we're a good match to coach together, then I can let you know what that looks like. But a consultation is really about you getting to figure out what specifically is causing this fever. And so I love to help you kind of look deeper at your relationship. And because I've coached so many people over the years, that I could pinpoint some things. You could tell me the most basic story, right? But I'm putting the pieces together. They're like, oh my gosh, how did you know that? It's like, because there's patterns in life and there's patterns in behavior. And so yeah, I would just invite anybody who is scared of booking a consultation or something because you think it's just a sales opportunity, I want you to know that really a consultation is helping you figure out where you are and how to get where you want to be.
Awesome. Awesome. So I'm not seeing any questions right now on the live, but there is a question that I have been asked many times. I know you have as well. So I thought we would cover this in the last couple minutes.
Okay.
And then for those of you, because Kendra is an admin in our group, if you're listening to this within the next 30 days, it'll be posted in the Facebook group. If you're listening to this later and you do have a question for her, type it into the comments and she will answer it. Just tag her in it and she will answer it. So I just feel done. I feel done in my relationship and I just want to be over. But how do I know if I'm actually done or if I'm just exhausted?
Great question. And that's also something that we can kind of answer on a consultation too. But the way that I see it is like going back to that when I ask clients to write a list of what's worth fighting for, right, in the relationship. And if there's even a little bit, I can help hold hope for you. But I also help them go through that list and how much of that is I statements and how much of that is other person's statements. So is the reason for staying, well, he did stop looking at porn and he did do this and he wants this and he's promised this and all of these things. If everything on the list is only pointed at the other person and not about what you're getting out of the relationship, it's at least something to really look at closely. Or is it, I feel loved, I feel fulfilled, I have hopes and dreams of the future with this person. I still remember what it felt like on our wedding day, and I want to get that feeling again. Like, is it I focused or other person focused? And if your reasons for doing everything is other person focused, there's a significant problem here that really needs to get looked at. And I try to be really careful to never tell a client, you need to divorce, you need to leave, you need to whatever. It's a very personal decision. But I call this my magic mirror. It's a whiteboard, but I help them truly see with their eyeballs all the thoughts and words and things that are happening in their head so that they can see it clearly and make that decision. But looking at that list and what's on the list is usually pretty eye-opening for them.
Right. I like that. I
Yeah.
really like that. Thank you so much, Kendra, for joining us today,
Yeah.
dressed on Halloween as love and hope and all good things. I love the glasses. It's
Yes.
cracking me up.
I don't pull them out usually, but here they are for Love Day.
And thanks for sharing with us just the hope that you have in the possibility of relationships healing after betrayal and the importance of safety, the importance of where our hope goes, and all of those different things that you've shared with us today. Again, I will go ahead and put all of Kendra's contact information here in the show notes on the podcast, as well as in the group. And as you guys know, you can get in contact with Kendra here in the group as well if you'd like to ask any follow-up questions or have any disagreements. Every person who experiences betrayal is unique. There's nothing about you that made you a target for betrayal. And so ultimately, we're all going to have different experiences. We're going to have different opinions. And that's why I have lots of different voices here on the podcast. I mean, we've had Jeff Stewart, we've had Hope Ray, we've had Tina Weiner. All of these people are marriage therapists and who work with couples in very unique ways with very unique and valid and valuable perspectives. And we'll have more in the future because there are so many different ways to tackle this. So that we'll just keep all talking and working together and lifting together. And the way that Kendra is doing things, I think is absolutely beautiful. And I hope that those of you who are ready for it and interested, or maybe you can tuck this away in your mind for a day when you are, might consider getting on the phone with her and just trying it out and see what happens and see if you can find some of that growth. Thank you again, Kendra. And thank you, everybody. Have a good one.
Of course. Bye-bye.
Bye.